Are we going mad? This is something that I've contemplated for a great deal of my life. I've been fascinated right from a very young age all about the human condition. And I've made many wonderful discoveries and realizations, and I've discovered that we're not going mad. We've actually gone mad. We were never sane to begin with. But what is happening is we are awakening collectively. There's a massive shift in human consciousness that is happening. And if you're on the planet right now, you're going to evolve, whether you want to or not. You can do it electively, or you can do it by nature's force of hand. So I'm a big fan of moving with the tide rather than swimming against it. So one of the things we're going to learn at the end of the night is what are some simple but very vital things that you can do to evolve yourself in this world, in this short epoch of time that you're in a human body. So anyway, onto the theme of are we going mad? The long and the short of it is, you got that? We are. We're totally mad. We've all gone crackers. So how do we awaken? But I always look for evidence. I don't like to say, yes, that is so. I've never been one to embrace something without running it through a process. So what I did when I looked at the theme of madness, I thought, are we mad? And I thought, well, yes, but what else? Are we insane? Are we stupid? Are we ignorant? We're all those things. We're not one thing. We're a conglomeration of all these qualities. So just let me get this phone working. And let me begin. Beautiful. It's amazing. I've got the slideshow on this phone. Isn't that cool? Are we going mad? Yes, madness is extremely foolish or being ill-advised in a frenzied mental or physical state. You'd have to say 95% of the planet would fit that model. Are we stupid, lacking intelligence or common sense, dazed and unable to think clearly? How about insane? In a state of mind that prevents normal perception, behaviour or social interaction, seriously mentally ill. Seriously. And this is the problem with insanity, because no one who was ever insane ever believed themselves to be so. And how do we determine someone to be insane? We just go by whatever the common standard is, and if you don't fit that, then you're insane. That's how it works. And in medieval times, when they believed certain people were insane, like witches, they would subject them to certain tests to determine whether they were. We would put them in water and drown them, and if they floated to the top, they were insane. If they sunk, they weren't. Great test. So what we really don't know is how deeply disturbed we are as human beings, because we're all suffering from the same condition. We're all suffering from the same problem. We're all swimming inside the same state. So what we need to do is look for the evidence. So I consulted some very wise individuals and asked what they thought of the human experience. And Einstein said that two things are infinite: the universe and human stupidity. And he wasn't so sure about the universe. Absolutely certain about human stupidity. Then I consulted the Dalai Lama and wanted to hear his thoughts on what he thought was the most curious thing in the world. And he said man and women, Russian women. He said because man will basically sacrifice his health to make money. And then what he'll do is sacrifice his money to recuperate his health. And then he'll live in a terrible state of anxiety about the future, so much so that he won't live in the present, and then will die having not lived at all. And then there was Martin Luther King. He said that our material power has outrun our spiritual power. We have guided missiles and misguided men and women. And this is really the state of the world. So what I wanted to look further was, what is the evidence of our time? We've been gifted with this absolutely exquisite physiology. The human brain is the most divinely created thing on earth. It's really the crown jewel of the entire universe. And we use 5% of it. Is that normal? That's common. That's not normal. So we really need to look at why is it that we suffer from chronic brain failure. Our heads could really be that big if we're only using that much of our brain. We've got this massive kind of gift inside us, and there's ways to actually invoke its potential. Modern life is not designed to bring enlightenment. It's not set up. The design of the universe is that everything should thrive. Everything should flourish. Heaven is encoded into everything in this universe. The problem is human beings are like a wild card in the deck of creation. Everything else is governed by laws of nature. Human beings, however, are governed by their intellect. And there's usually some serious distortions within the intellect which create massive problems in our lives. We're going to address that soon. But human beings have the potential to live heaven on earth. The Vedic view, and I've really come from that Vedic lineage, which has given us yoga, Ayurveda, all the wonderful systems of Indian philosophy, unity, wonderful music, maths, architecture. These all have their origins in the Vedic system. I was very fortunate to become a student of it at a very young age. So the Vedic view is that heaven exists, but you need to culture your nervous system to be able to deliver that to you. Stress and chronic brain failure do not elicit a heavenly, blissful experience. So there's things that we need to do to transform our nervous system and really get in the driver's seat, because we live in an age of endarkenment. And if we keep going along with society's patterns and increasing weapons of mass distraction, we're never actually going to meet our potential. We're just going to continue to struggle. So one of the things we need to do is really understand the power of the brain. There's something which is far more powerful than that, and that's the mind. And there's something which eclipses that, which is much more supreme than that, and that's your spirit. That's your being. And we're going to get to all this. But let's just stick with the evidence for now. This place still exists on earth. For me, that's a sure sign that people are demonstrating stupid, moronic, idiotic, imbecilic behaviour. We'll know we're in an age of enlightenment when there are no golden arches on this planet. That'll be the defining evidence. You know, really. The destruction that it causes to the environment, to our bodies, is horrific. Beer. There's more litres of alcohol consumed on our planet than there are people. That's not good. But this has become...
But wine is.
Wine, if it's non-alcoholic... people say wine is fantastic because it's got antioxidants in it. So does an apple. So does grapefruit juice. So does a piece of lettuce. So it's the antioxidants. They're everywhere. They're not just in wine. It's got all the brain-killing, chemicals in there too. But if you want to drink a wine, bless it first. People still do that. We know how bad it is, but we're just kind of still smoking. Fortunately, we don't have to passively do it any longer. Hallelujah. This would have once been a room full of clouded smoke. Another more evidence for idiotic behaviour comes when human beings step into the role of creator and manipulate what Mother Nature took billions of years to perfect. Genetic engineering is something which is going on, which is horrific. I'm drawing your attention to this because I'm of the view that if enough people become aware of something, that creates a shift within the collective. It's not meant to highlight all the negativity in the world. There's enough of that goes on. Newspapers and television stations are dedicated to highlighting negativity. I'm not here to do that. I'm just here to create awareness. It's an important thing. We'll get onto the good stuff later. Another thing that baffles me that humans do with food is that we spray all these chemicals on it. These chemicals are poisonous chemicals. We spray it on the food and then we eat the food. When you look at a broccoli, it can have up to 40 different chemicals on it. Apples are sprayed sometimes a dozen times before it gets to your mouth. So we need to be careful what we're doing to the food and what it is that we're putting into the body, because we are what we eat. This is another wonderful demonstration of stupidity, is we live on an earth where people are investing more money in weaponry than we are in education, than we are in healthcare, than we are in things that promote peace. If we still live by this view that we can kill our way to peace, that's just the most imbecilic concept. It's like screwing someone and sleeping with someone, having sex, and thinking it's going to restore virginity. It'll never do that. It's not possible. So wars are perpetuated by ignorance. John Lennon, he put up a wonderful billboard once, and he upset a lot of different people in his time because he was a voice. He was a voice for change, and he was a voice to challenge the hierarchy of power. And he put up a wonderful poster at Times Square in New York that said, "What if we had a war and no one turned up?" Yeah. And this is what we have. We have a war, or we have a life that has been set up that we are all unconsciously upholding. We're participating in the madness. What if we didn't turn up? The whole thing would change. The whole dynamic of the world would shift. It's because one person does something, and then one of the concepts or the fundamental ideas of Vedic science is you become what you see. Consciousness has this habit of becoming whatever it's perceiving. So children learn through osmosis. Every human being basically gets woven into the fabric of society and inherits a belief system, thought patterns, mental conditioning. But what if we were to challenge what we see and step away from it? Then that would give permission for others to do the same, and you would start to notice that the whole thing would collapse, it would break down. We are more powerful than we think. Spiritually, of course, but just in terms of how we can affect change in our world. We tend to think that it's bigger than me, I can do nothing about it. We tend to think that governments have the power, or institutions have the power. I have to tell you that that is not the case at all. It's when the many actually acquiesce or give up their power that then they are powerless. But the governments, excuse my French, are shit scared of people waking up. I had a friend who was intimately connected with a royal family and a political family. They were I won't say which country, but basically they were president of a country. And there was a conversation that happened between my friend and this family, and they said, he was a pretty conscious guy, and he said, don't you think that your government will be well served by investing in programs that awaken your people and do these things? And they said, we don't want that. If we do that, we can't govern and rule, and we'll be voted out of office. And this is what happens. They're only in power because we think that they have to be. I've been working on a few different global initiatives, and what we've always found is that we need funding to really make something happen. And then you go, okay, what makes something worth funding? And you think, well, you have to have a product, or you have to have a company that gives a service, and if that appeals to a lot of people, that company will exist. So the companies are dependent on the people. If the people suddenly thought, all right, banks are great, but we're just going to change the model and we're actually going to print our own currency, the banks will be out of business. And these things can all happen, but we don't believe they can. Anyway, we'll move on from war to this. Another thing that we do daily, which kind of makes me sick, is we put these fossil fuels in our cars. Why the hell are we doing that when we have an inexhaustible supply of solar energy? We have wind, we have geothermal, we have water, we even have 0-point energy, which Nikola Tesla tapped into many, many, many years ago. Probably the greatest inventor that's ever walked the face of the earth. But his research was unfortunately funded by JP Morgan, who owned all the patents. And when Nikola Tesla showed that he could tap into zero-point energy and transmit energy through space, just through the ether, JP Morgan said, where do I stick the meter? It's not profitable. So it was burned. So, but a time is coming, and it's coming very soon, when we will cease to use coal, when we will cease to use petrol. It's going to happen in our lifetime, partly because basically peak oil's over, we're on the downhill, and we won't have this stuff, but the technologies there exist. And the problem with human beings is that we don't generally do anything until we've run out of other options. We have to wait till the 11th hour, till everything's bad enough, till there's actually no more petrol, then we'll go, okay, maybe we should look at something else. But if we can all start to awaken to these concepts, it'll begin to spread like wildfire. This notion circulating in the collective starts to promote that sort of thinking, and then we see it start to manifest and be reflected in industry. Another problem that we have is that our education system is based on a very old model. It's 100 years old. Do you reckon the world's a little bit different now than it was 100 years old? We send people to school and these kids come out and they know nothing about health. They know nothing about their own mind, how it works, their own consciousness, how to nourish relationships, how to artfully live and exist on the planet, how to communicate, how to be generous and kind. We don't learn anything valuable in school. I found it absolutely torturous. So education obviously needs to change. And Aristotle, he said something so beautiful. He said educating the mind without educating the heart is actually no education at all. So we need heart-based education. And this is what Soul Session is doing, filling a massive void in the market. This is just another example of stupidity. This guy got into office, not once but twice. And then we voted him out and we put Barack Obama. And the even stupider thing is that we thought things would change. What those political people do is just reflect the average state of consciousness of the people. And they're enslaved to governing according to the deserving power, to the intelligence and the conscious level of the people. They can do nothing other than that. Because if they do anything other than that, what will happen is they'll be voted out. Or you basically have a political system that's governed by power and force, and people have no freedom. Can't have that anyway. He got voted in twice, the idiot. Anyway, another thing that human beings do is we consume a lot. We live as if we have an infinite supply of matter. We don't. We live on a finite planet with finite resources, yet we consume far more than our share. Did you know that 80% of the world's resources are consumed by less than 20% of the world's population? Scary. So if everyone lived like that, we would not need one Earth but two. So are we going mad? Is the world insane? Yes, definitely. What do we need to do? Often it's basically identifying something and doing the opposite. Wonderful Vedic principle. Just basically do the opposite. Really simple. We're consuming lots, what do we do? Learn to be sustainable. Consume less, live simply. All these things. We do this. Species on our planet are becoming extinct in their thousands, hundreds of thousands of species every single year. We owe it to those creatures to care for them, to love them, and to understand that we don't own this planet, we share it. It's not ours to govern and rule, it's really ours to nurture. Another thing that people do, and I've been guilty of this myself, is we go in the pursuit of money. And I did it for a long time, and then I realised that is just the stupidest thing. I had this idea that if I was able to get enough money, or just in general, I think we all suffer from that delusion, if we can just get enough digits in the bank, what we will then experience is a freedom and a bliss and just a lightness to our life. And so I think a lot of people do believe that. This is why people work about 60 hours a week, chasing a shadow, a false target. I've had the great fortune in my career to mentor millionaires, billionaires, sit down with people who have got a lot of digits, who have got a lot of matter. And what I've found is that they have an equal number, or if not more, troubles than the people who are poor. I couldn't believe it, and it was such a revelation for me. I thought, yeah, we don't need to do that. What we need to do is go after what the heart tells us to. If you go after what you love, it'll translate into wonderful wealth and affluence. If everyone on the planet was to do what they love, imagine what the world would be like. Imagine what the atmosphere would be like. But we do things because we feel we have to. And this is just a disease. This is a disease within the thinking mind, within the structure of the intellect. You don't have to do anything. You have to do what you love. That's the universe's commandment to you. Do what you love. That's how you gain freedom in this world. And with passion and purpose, flood in all the benefits. And if you don't get the money, who cares? You'll be living bliss anyway. The most wealthy person I ever met was a man by the name of Rameshwara in India. And he was a tiny, skinny, little saintly man. I kind of started to end up looking like him when I finished with India. Before I went there, I was 65 kilos. And when I came back, I was 55. But as my master used to tell me, thin in body but big in consciousness. So I was willing to make that sacrifice. But anyway, Rameshwar was a very beautiful man. And we just happened upon each other on the banks of the Ganges River one day. And I could just feel in his presence that he wanted for nothing. And he had literally nothing. He had a little bag that contained a sacred text and some photos of his master in it. And that was it. And he needed nothing. And this man just sort of walked around India, and over in that continent there's a little bit of a system where you fund those people to continue to do that, because what they're doing is supporting the spiritual fabric of the country. So they're supported. People give them alms and money and food. And so I did the same thing. But as I handed him just some money, he kind of looked at it and went, "What's that? Why do I need that?" And he took it and thought, "Oh yeah, I need that for food." But what we need most in life is not food, money, shelter. These things are actually a given in our culture. No one in this room, and I could kind of bet on this, has never gone 24 hours without food. You might have electively done that, but no one has ever not had access to food. No one has never had access to a house, a bed, roof, shelter. We don't suffer from any of this in our culture. But what we do suffer from is the stuff that we genuinely need. We've gone from survival. We need to actually go into those higher spiritual planes and awaken that in our lives. Because if we don't, we suffer. And that's why people are really suffering in our culture, because they feel so disconnected. That's the greatest cause of all human misery. We disconnect from ourselves. Then we disconnect from each other. We disconnect from our planet. We disconnect from our purpose. And with that disconnection comes all these symptoms that you see before you. So how do you remedy that? Connect. We'll get to that in a second. The other thing that people tend to be doing is just moving too quickly. Life just moves too fast. I know one person that has maids, servants, several PAs, staff, and still her life moves at 100 miles an hour. So busy. I'm thinking, what does it take to stop? What does it take to be still in our culture? It takes a decision. You have to want to do that. And you have to get off the treadmill and know that it's possible. And know that your life will flow in whatever direction you're guiding it to. And if you're just caught in the static of life, you'll just remain there. You'll never stop. So we're always intent on arriving somewhere. One of the key things to realise is that you're there now. We have to drop the idea that the future is better than now. That there's another place, time, or something else waiting for you that's better than what you have right now. That's a total delusion. Because if we have that idea, we're always going to be on a quest. We're always going to be seeking, but we're never actually going to realise. We have to understand that what you have, or what you need, you already have, you possess. It's all inside you, within your own consciousness. And that's what we really are seeking in life, is a state. That's kind of what all my researchers told me, is that ultimately when you boil what human beings want, they want an experience. That's what we all want. We all think, I'm going to work hard, I'm going to make loads of money so I can have the house. And why do you want the house? So you can have the experience of being in a house or owning a house. The problem is it's dearly bought, because you spend 30 years and you work your butt off, and then by the time you get into the house, you spend. Your adrenals are burnt out, and then you get cancer and you die, and that's it. So we need to enjoy the process. And the process is where the joy lies. If we think that it's in the end point, the end is so finite. It is so small. You think, I'm here and I want to get here. You'll get there, and then what? That moment is so over. And then what you'll find, your mind will project itself away from the now again and go, okay, that was good, and we got a bit of oxytocin, and we felt a little bit of elevation when we acquired that thing or achieved that. I need that again. And then we go on another quest. That might be a 5-minute quest to the fridge, or it could be a 5-year quest, to being partner in a firm or something like that. But what I've learned is that it is the process that we must endeavour to become one with and to relish in. And it's the experience of fulfillment and connection that we all actually crave. But it just gets disguised. And we identify with the projection rather than actually the source. And so that's what we all want, an experience. And what is the greatest experience you can have on the planet? We'll get to that after.
After the ad break.
After the what?
After the ad break.
Yes, exactly. The toilet break. And we know that we're silly when we do this. When this is a response to human beings. When they have an awareness that things aren't right in the world, what do? Just kind of pretend that it's not there. Other people will take care of it. Someone else will fix it. That's not a good approach. We need to do what we can do in our own lives. It doesn't have to be a massive thing. You don't have to end world hunger. Find a solution to poverty. You might be commanded to do something like that, but it might just be playing with your kids, creating a beautiful home life, being loving to your friends, being generous to strangers. These are really great little things that are actually the building blocks of humanity. So we need to do little things well. So anyway, why are we so stupid? There is one fundamental reason.